It's Wednesday, and I thought it was about time to talk about this whole gender identity thing going on. Um, it seems to be, overtaking the conversation, and I'm finding it throughout my Facebook feed and my various feeds, and most recently, I've come to some different conclusions as to where I started because all I see is the complete sexualization of us. It's like an obsession. And that's the way I've been feeling for a few years now. I didn't see it before because, I came from a time of, in high school, there was no one gay. Well, there was one gay guy, but, he hadn't come out yet. I always thought so because he sort of just didn't fit in. He did, but he didn't seem interested in girls. And when I started going to the clubs, my dad helped fake my ID when I was 16 because my friend and I, we wanted to go to town and go to the dance clubs. We wanted to dance. Being Italian, I had a curfew of midnight. She had 1 o'clock. So between the two of us, we would switch off staying at each other's house, but my place wasn't, as fun. We had an extra hour at hers. In any case, we would go to these clubs and we started to be exposed to gays for the first time and lesbians. And, we danced, we, partied a bit, but, honestly, we, as you could tell, we didn't have a lot of time to do that or time to get into trouble. We had to get home. So, we got to do what we wanted to do and explore, but we still had pretty firm boundaries. And, I met lots of gay guys and lesbians, and I thought, whatever. I never saw a trans person, though, until 1989. And it was in the weirdest place. I had never thought for a million years this would be weird, but it was Managua, Nicaragua. We'd met a doctor in our travels who worked for an aid organization, and he took us to the district. And it was something I'd never seen, never been exposed. And it was after that, actually, I moved to Vancouver. And then I would, once in a while see it, but still really rare. And then not so rare. Now, in my city, it had to be about 16, 17 years ago, just outside Fort Capel, there was a hotel there called the Country Squire. And I will never forget, this is one of the first times we ever heard of transgender. And a veterinarian had been hired by a desperate young man who wanted to have an operation, and no one would do it for him. And the psychological battery to get to the place of having the surgery, or for some reason he just didn't qualify mentally to get it done. I'm not sure what the parameters were back then here in Canada. In any case, he hired him, and the doctor, the veterinarian, did the surgery, and he botched it. And that young man died as a result. And that was the first time I'd heard of it, and you just go, wow, honestly, it brings you to tears. How someone could feel so desperate to change their sex. Now, I'm saying sex because we were male and female. This gender thing seemed to have crept in a few years ago, and all of a sudden, you know, the male-female stopped. But in any case, at that time, he was trying to remove his parts. I was just taken aback, and honestly, it still brings me to tears thinking about how desperate someone could be to hire a veterinarian to do that surgery. So, you know, as the transgender movement, and I don't say movement anymore because I'm starting to see it as a little bit more contrived than that. As it's grown, let's say, you know, this is the compassion that people feel. And I don't think anybody on earth would ever will something like that to go down. Really. Yet at the end of the day, now what we're seeing is an absolute normalization. Now we're talking, this is like 15, 16 years difference. This isn't very long. From a veterinarian performing that surgery, because that was the only option, to today, where we're seeing the absolute normalization of it. What's going on here? It seems to me that there is a tremendous promotion for everything not heterosexual. And funny enough, you know, in the last 10 years particularly, I've felt, you know, this push within even the hetero community to, you know, want to get it on with everybody and their dog, but not their dog, obviously. God, I hope not. But shit, nothing would surprise me. It's getting crazy. For me, it's been the polyamorous that have tried to befriend me, and I'm just like, absolutely not. You know, I'm firmly heterosexual. I believe in partnership. I believe actually in traditional values. And in fact, I've completely backed off the sexual scene because to me, it's just gotten gross. I don't want any part of it. It is so deceptive. And, you know, the minute, I swear to God, the minute those phones came out, all hell broke loose because, you know, it was really hard to have an affair in the day. Especially when you had the party line. I mean, how are you going to get away with it, right? But then the more privacy that we are perceived to have, you know, the less the more deviant the behavior becomes, you know, so you can easily sneak around. I've seen the sexual attitudes just get like, whoa. There's just, you know, monogamy seems to be abhorred, not revered. I don't understand why. Because there's so many people out there convincing everybody that, you know, you have to settle for crumbs on one and to get, you know, to get the gold on the other. Of course, that doesn't work, but this is the story. That, you know, being deceptive is normal. I was pretty free sexually for many years. You know, I've been single for 15 years. And where I was, you know, I was always on the road. So I didn't, you know, I wasn't around too much. And, you know, I had lover here and a lover there, but nothing that really stuck. Mostly because I didn't want it to. I've never been one for friends with benefits. That is just ridiculous. You know, the setup for a complete disaster. Someone always gets feelings. That cannot be avoided for the most part. And that's just the way it is. Men and women are different. And women, you know, we fall. So what I've seen over the years, though, is the socialization of women to be more male when it comes to sex. And, you know, at one point I think I was even like that. I was. And that has really changed. I'm going back in time to my original values. You know, as we talk about the normalization of all of this gender dysphoria, it seems to me that a lot of this is just being created. Do you actually think that all these kids are waking up one morning and saying, I want to be a boy or a girl, or I want to change my gender? I think they're being exposed to information that is leading them to those questions way too early in life. I think if an adult wants to do that, that's absolutely up to them. And because it is a decision that only an adult could ever make. Because this is a life sentence of hormones and drugs, because they're going to spin off. And then these surgeries. So a child's not equipped to make those decisions. They're not. I think it's abuse. An adult, on the other hand, if you want to do it, go for it. Hey, it's up to you. It's your life. I don't want to ever see anyone be so desperate to change that they would have to go underground to get that done. That's just not cool. But I also want to ask why there's a war on heterosexuality and family. We keep talking about all the immigrants that we need to come to Canada because we are not making babies. Yet we are getting a different message in schools, and we're getting a different message in society. And I believe it's all being contrived right before our very eyes. I think it's time to ask some questions. And again, stop buying into the phobias, because discussing this is so important. We need to start understanding what is happening, because we are seeing great changes in every aspect of our society because of these issues that are cropping up more and more. We need to be firm on where our values stand. And I have to think there's a lot of parents that are quite concerned about the messages their kids are getting. I think that as they grow, they will discover who they are. And they have to be allowed to do that.